right. I'm now joined by Jason Myles from This Is Revolution podcast and Touré Reed, author of Toward Freedom. And Jason is going to, is going to be in Los Angeles, California on October. Oh, that was silly. There we go. On October 23rd, along with me and a bunch of other people for the Give Them a Revolution live show. So we've got Nando Vila in that, Anna Kasparian. Tickets are going to be on sale on Friday. All right.
I'm super excited for that, and we're gonna be flooding the interwebs with ticket links as soon as we get them.
Yes.
The venue wants to do a big announcement on Friday, but Friday is when they drop tickets. So if you want us to email you the link before everybody else, hit up Ben, hit up me. We'll get that to you ASAP. We want to see all of your pretty faces in LA.
Absolutely. So surely Wesley's not a libertarian.
This is a damn good thumbnail, by the way.
It is a damn good thumbnail. Our graphic designer, J. Andrew World, did great work there. Yeah. So the movie is Blade from 1998, when the world was young, and that's I have this is most of the movies that we've talked about, since I started doing this with you guys. There are probably some exceptions. I'm trying to think, but it's like most there are movies that I think in one or two cases I was watching for the first time, but certainly I'd maybe seen once before, like Get Out and the Drag Me to Hell are both movies I saw in the theater, but I hadn't seen again since until we talked about them. Blade, back in the end of the 90s and the early 2000s, that was a very well-worn DVD.
Dude, Blade for me I was such a fan. I was telling Ben off air that at one point in time I actually bought a 7.6. It was graded Tomb of Dracula, first appearance of Blade. I used to own that for a while. Of course, I had the McFarlane Blade. Did McFarlane make a figure? No, Marvel made a figure of Blade. I did love his appearance in the 90s Spider-Man. He was the perfect action hero for me. This movie was everything I wanted in a movie at that time. And for a vampire movie, I love vampire movies. Kind of redefined vampire movies. Vampire action is now a thing. And it definitely wasn't before. Even with things like The Lost Boys, they definitely had aerial fights in The Lost Boys, but nothing to the level of Blade, where every vampire is a ninja.
Blade is the only superhero film that I've actually seen in a theater as an adult. I won't count the Christopher Reeve Superman films because I was a child and it was a dollar show. So my parents just wanted me out the house or whatever. But I made a choice to see Blade in the movie theater with my homeboy, James Campbell, who's a big Kung Fu movie fan as well. And I'm a Wesley Snipes fan. At least I like Wesley Snipes when he's either playing a trifling brother who's maybe running around on his wife or something. I don't know.
Disappearing ex.
Something. Or a superhero / anti-hero. So Passenger 57 is actually one of my all-time favorite movies. And for me, and I think Jason will appreciate this, given that we both lived in Louisiana and had some uncomfortable experiences there. Passenger 57 came out, which really, I've always liked Wesley Snipes, but it was Passenger 57 that made me a serious Wesley Snipes fan. I was working in New Orleans, the first permanent temp job I had, with a bunch of people who had voted for David Duke. And I experienced a lot of frustrations because I wanted to smack a bitch too, but I also I needed to keep my job, so I had to bite my tongue a lot. And I remember seeing the ad for Passenger 57. I said, "Okay, I got to go see this." And the specific line that I was looking for, and I love the whole movie, but when Blade, when Wesley's character, when Wesley's character talks to the bad guy, was he a Brit? I don't recall, but he says something like, "Charlie, you ever play roulette? Let me give you some advice, Charlie. Always bet on black." I said, "Oh shit, I got to see this movie." So I went to see it immediately. First opportunity I had. And, I will confess, I think Jason and I have this in common. In movie theaters, I am a stereotype.
Yes.
So
yes.
I didn't really acknowledge that.
Don't go in there.
No, don't go with me unless you want to talk shit the whole time. And unfortunately,
no, but I mean like the don't
all
go in
that
there.
shit. Yeah.
All
that. And in my early 20s, I don't think I could admit that to myself. But by my early 30s, I did. So I made a point for the public good to only go to movies on Sundays.
But no one's there.
When no one's there, after the movie's been out a couple weeks, and I sit in the back, and then I can act a fool. So
is your father like that too?
No.
No, not at the movies, but at
okay.
home. Like if your father's watching shit at home, he's yelling at the screen.
We do a little bit of that. He's a big.
We know Ben's dad yelled at him.
Well, we do know that. Yes, you have been clear on that. Ben hasn't been clear on that, but Jason has.
That's why Ben is so quiet in the theater. He gets flashbacks of
PTSD.
Ben would just stop breathing so hard. God damn! I'm trying to enjoy the Jeffersons, Ben. I can't even watch the Jeffersons with you. What are you, asthmatic?
Did you record my father? I mean, am I listening to? Just eerie. Okay.
So Blade is a great film, as Patrick Bateman might say, just to bring us back to older subject. It seems that we're in agreement.
Yeah,
Dude,
no,
love it. It's saved. You know what we forget about? I went to the theater to see Batman and Robin.
Oof.
And
yep.
I think
I did too, actually.
I remember I got dumped that day
that.
by a young lady, and I remember like trying to watch Batman and Robin, and I was all sad. My friend's like, "Dude, why do you keep leaving?" I was like, "I got a pager, so she'll call me back."
Yeah, pager.
Well, now you should call her and do your rendition of Biz Marquis / Big Daddy Kane's The Vapors.
No.
But that is a great song.
It is.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Biz Marquis.
But yeah, I mean, Jason, like what you said, not the part about my dad, but the before, during, of course, I do remember. Granted, I suppose it is only fair. We used to hear a lot in streams in 2021 about Jason's dad and the like inappropriate movies that he took him to when he was like 6. That's it's like, hey son, you want to come watch Caligula with me. But what you said before that, right? About the vampire action thing, right? I mean, that's clearly right. I mean, like this is, like I think actually when I was, I think maybe after I watched this last night, the HBO Max, whatever service
HBO
I was,
Max. That's where I saw. Yeah, HBO Max.
Was like showing me like suggested movies like they do, and it was like, oh, like Underworld and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, that's all the stuff that existed because this did.
Well,
So
I watched Morbius.
The Vampire Slayer beat it to the punch for action.
But to Ray and Ben, did you guys watch Morbius, the movie they were shitting on Jared Leto for?
But I think Morbius you can buy it for like $7, right, on Amazon.
No, it's on the HBO thing. Well, I'm in Mexico,
so you
so I
don't
don't know
have
if
to
it's
buy
free
it
or not in the States, because there's different stuff, right? But like I can watch The Office on my HBO in Mexico. But I watched the Morbius film, and it was whatever. It wasn't great, but I was like, man, I'm afraid of this Blade redo because New Line does Blade, and they gave those guys a lot more freedom to do what they wanted to do. It has more of a horror feel to it because I think Morbius is PG-13. There's really no blood in it.
Wow.
And Morbius is a character in the Blade universe, but I guess originally he's supposed to be in this movie, but they didn't own the rights because Marvel. This is the era of Marvel's just selling rights left and right to everybody. And the Spider-Man, Sony owned the rights to Morbius at the time, or still do actually. Because if you remember the cartoon, that's who he's fighting with Spider-Man is Morbius. And I don't know. I'm afraid after rewatching this movie and enjoying the hell out of it. It's such a popcorn flick.
Yeah.
It's such a horror flick. It's everything you want. And I watched Morbius, which was so CGI. It was so much CGI in it. It actually took away, I think, from a lot of the cool fight scenes. Because when you watch Blade, this is Hong Kong style,
right?
Line fighting, really good stunt work, and practical effects.
Yeah, I was actually pleasantly surprised rewatching it because I was kind of expecting 1998. There's going to be some CGI that's not going to hold up, but that all seemed fine.
Except for the blood guy. I thought the CGI was fine until you get to the very end. And
garbage pail kids,
which was much worse. Originally, they. I only know this because I randomly remember watching a DVD extra feature in 1999 or something that they did this thing where Deacon Frost has been completely transformed into the blood god originally. Then they decided it looked too goofy, and they didn't do it. But yeah, we are getting ahead of ourselves. So let's start at the beginning of the movie. It's 1967. And making, I guess, Blade in his early 30s as the movie starts. And his mother is dying. She was bit by a vampire while she was pregnant with him, thus creating. And by the way, is something that never occurred to me before, but did strike me rewatching. It's that can't be that unusual a situation, right? There have to be at least a few other daywalkers, but whatever. Because she was bit by a vampire while she was pregnant with him, which resulted in not a vampire. And by the way, in the Blade universe, you can be born a vampire, and there's even a little bit of a caste system within the Vampire Nation, depending on whether you were born or merely turned. But rather than born a vampire or just a regular human, he's this weird half vampire who still has a thirst for blood, and still has all the powers of a vampire, but he is immune to. He doesn't have special sensitivity to garlic or silver, and most importantly, he can walk in the daylight
without sunscreen, which apparently is all they needed.
Yeah, that was a little yeah. So we'll get to that, but that was a little bit really, that's it. That's okay. This doesn't seem like nearly as much of a liability as I thought it would be. So we jump ahead. We jump ahead in time to 1998, and there's a guy and a girl. What's that?
Tracy Lord.
Oh yeah, right. So there's the guy and the girl in the car, and they have and she leads him into this what do you call it? It's they're going past
a meat
locker. Meat locker. There we go. Right,
yeah.
They're going
meat locker rave, basically.
A meat locker blood rave. Yeah.
Yes, they're going through this. They're going through this meat locker, which looks like a normal meat locker, although maybe he sees something for a second that makes him wonder if
Look
something
like
else
a
is going
couple of
on.
vacuum sealed humans in those bags, right? In a big
Yeah, because remember he does see something. He goes, "What is that?" There
Right.
had to have been vacuum sealed humans.
And I mean, not that this matters, but I did not realize until I rewatched it that guy that Tracy Lords is escorting to his doom played Lim on The Shield. So if you watch The Shield, it's Lim. Just putting it out there, not that anyone does or did watch The Shield. It was a very popular show, though. There you go.
Yeah. Before Law and Order SVU just destroyed everything.
It was the poor man's The Wire, though.
That's fair.
So they get to the rave with the blood and whatnot.
Yeah, they get to the rave. It looks like just a normal rave, but everybody's being kind of an asshole. But then, that butt doesn't belong there, but whatever, you know what I'm saying? That they have it looks like a normal rave. He's a little put
That was
off.
not proper rave etiquette.
yeah. But then blood starts spraying from the sprinkler system, and then everybody goes nuts. It's very dangerous, and then Blade shows up to kill all the vampires. And the movie is a little inconsistent about this, I have to say. But like in this, like how much vampires all know who he is. But in this case, they all know who he is, right? The second he shows up, they're like, "Oh shit, it's Blade."
When he shows up, you have to admit that's one of the more badass. Oh shit's about to go down, because we're only 2 minutes into the movie or so at this point,
right?
And even the action of seeing a rave on screen, and the dark elements of the big city. This is all kind of fun because when we think of superhero movies, again, we're coming off of the Batman movies, which are starting to really tail off in terms of quality, and they're really, really campy. And then there was a cash in right around, I would say 89, if you remember, like Dick Tracy.
I remember that.
Yeah.
They tried to make a Punisher movie and that never saw a cinematic release.
And ended up making at least two between the late 80s and because Thomas Jane
was in one.
Dolph Lundgren was, I think, in
Dolph Lundgren was in the one from 1990.
Yeah.
So I've
seen them both.
There was this. People were trying to recapture the financial success of Batman, because Batman not only spawned a very profitable toy line, but it also brought adults to the theater. So how do you spawn a toy line and bring adults to the theater? Batman lost that at some point. Superman definitely had lost it after the fourth one, and they sold their rights to Canon. And we were talking about the death of the superhero movie with Batman and Robin, because that had done so poorly in the theater. So to do a superhero movie with New Line, who is famous for the Freddy films and a series of other horror movies, for me, it's like I'm one of those guys that knows certain production companies. If I know Trauma Films, I know what I'm going to see, right? See some weird shit and a lot of gore. I know New Line, I'm going to see kind of more cutting edge experimental horror that you probably wouldn't see unless it was in the 90s and 80s. So the fact you're doing the superhero movie on this, and the fact that we don't really know Blade. Blade isn't a known commodity. He never even had his own series until after this movie hits. There's even characters in the movie that aren't in the comic because they're part of the cartoon. And there's nothing in this movie that other than the motorcycle at the end that reminds you of the cartoon. So the entrance of Blade is almost like the entrance of a more badass vampire hunter in a movie like Lost Boys. Like that's as close as that we have seen to something like this probably in our lifetime at this point, is like Lost Boys.
In retrospect, and I hadn't thought about this until you made that point, Jason. Now I look back on The Wire and I realize Omar was The Wire's Blade.
Oh yeah, totally.
Why do you say that?
Because all the gangsters, Omar's coming.
Omar.
They just take off, and he very frequently got what
Not
he
to
wanted.
mention the trench coat.
Absolutely, and he very frequently got what he wanted just on rep too, because everyone was his reputation preceded him, and everyone was afraid of him, right? Because they knew it was Omar. So Omar elicited a reaction from the gangsters, kind of akin to the reaction Blade elicited from vampires, real vampires.
And we never get to see like this world of vampires that exists in Blade.
That's what sequels are for, right?
And and also the rules are changed in Blade too. Blade really sets the tone for things like these crosses don't work. I mean, this is kind of right in the first 5-10 minutes of the movie. So right. Crosses don't work, water doesn't work.
Silver.
You learn about the familiars, which is now a common theme in modern vampire movies.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually kind of that was kind of like took me out of it a little bit because Ben and I have watching What You Do with the Shadows, so there's a jarring tone transition there. But yeah, that's but
the familiars are sort of inspired by Renfield, right?
Right,
from Dracula.
Exactly, yeah.
But they're more active than Renfield, right? They are real henchmen. In some instances, they're sort of like, I don't know, the Hamburglers, Karate Man, which we'll get to. But I like how they were uniformed at a certain point, right? They all wore the same gear. It was like Cobra Commander, wrong Marvel franchise. Like, damn.
Well,
you get a discount if you buy all those skull caps, zip up jackets at once. It's kind of cool. Until Blade shows up.
I mean, the Buffy part is interesting because I think Buffy is kind of transitional because, like, Buffy still has, even though it's kind of nonsensical in the world of Buffy, right? There's like no reason why any of this should work, but but like all of the like traditional Christian anti-vampire stuff still works in Buffy, right? The crosses work, holy water works, and I do think how actiony was it really? It was and it wasn't, right? I mean, I think that you get I think that I actually think we were talking about this a little bit before we went on. I actually think Blade was probably a big influence on like the like third season of Buffy, which came out afterwards. I think that was like right after actually, but and I think that's where in certain respects it actually got like a little bit more actiony in terms of like having scenes where she's like fighting like a big group of vampires all at once and stuff like that, right? So Blade might be a big thing there. Speaking of TV shows, somebody in the chat says the vacuum seal humans was a thing in the short-lived live action show, which I actually did watch. I barely remembered that existed, but
I enjoyed it.
Oh, maybe that's what the guy saw, because remember he does stop and he goes, "Whoa, what's that?"
That's what it was. It was vacuum sealed humans. And Sticky Fingers was an interesting choice for Blade the series and the live action series, which again I watched. I bought it on DVD because I thought it was pretty well done. CGI doesn't hold up that well though in retrospect. I'm just glad my parents decided not to name me Sticky Fingers because Touré was hard enough. Sticky Fingers would be even harder, just for different reasons.
Because he was billed as Sticky Fingers, right?
That's him, Sticky Fingers.
With a Z.
No R's or S's need apply.
I'm sure his agent was like, we just need to call you Omar. Your name's Omar. Just call you Omar. Nah, Sticky Fingers. I'll be big after this.
He was right for a time. He worked a good bit.
You know what?
For a while.
He goes by his real name now. When he's trying
Does he really?
Yeah, he's trying to get work. You go apply for a job with Sticky Fingers.
It hasn't held up over time, is what you're saying,
Professor Fingers.
that could work.
I didn't get the syllabus.
That could work. Not for me, but for somebody else.
Yeah, Sticky Fingers is going by his real last name.
Well, he was good as Blade as well.
You say I refuse to watch it. I just can't do it.
Yeah, I liked it. I mean, I think.
Did you like it? You didn't hear Onyx songs the whole time you saw him on screen?
It was tough.
Move back, motherfucker. Yeah. The vampire's here. No.
God,
seriously.
Gotta clip just that 5 seconds. Jason doing that.
Just hear slam, and every time he's driving around the city, couldn't do it, man. You're a better man than me.
Yeah. So in this Blade, in so he's showed up to shut down the blood rave. I think another element of the sort of, I don't know, modernization and actionization of the vampire genre here is that he's not like he's not like holding like a wooden stake like Buffy. He has a gun, right? That it shoots silver, but in some ways I have to say, like, I did have the uncomfortable thought in passing that's like, man, this feels like I'm like, well, it is literally a mass shooting that he's engaged in there, right? He shows up to a group of people who are having a party and he starts shooting everybody. Justifiable mass shooting in this case, but and he's looking for Deacon Frost. What's Deacon's henchman who keeps cutting off his arm?
Oh,
the Oak Ridge boy.
What's his name?
I mean, not in real life. I just kept thinking he was like an Oak Ridge boy or something, like their kid.
His name, hold on, I was actually just reading it. Oh God, he's the guy that plays the Irish detective in Law and Order.
Really?
McNulty.
Quinn.
Sorry, that's Blair. Yeah.
Quinn is his name.
The character.
Okay.
Quinn. Yeah, the character's name is Quinn. The guy's name is Donald Loge. Loogie.
He was a fun character. I mean, the role that his arm played throughout is
apparently all his scenes, other than the first scene, are improv. They wrote his character was supposed to die. They said he's so funny, let's just keep him.
He was great.
I was like, oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of. I mean, there's a he's a kind of archetype, right? I mean, like, he strikes me. He's like a certain kind of like dumb, fun guy who's in like a more charismatic guy's entourage. Like, like he's sort of the Kato Caitlin figure of the the Deacon, or like, I don't know who's the guy, the Tim Pool's the guy they call like Moon Lord, right? That's he's kind of that guy, but Blade ends up burning him really badly, but crucially not killing him, right? So the vampire rules, I'm actually not totally clear on whether in Blade, I'm trying to think whether you can kill a vampire just with fire or not, but if so, it's really hard. Like,
there's a lot of things that don't make sense because he stabs him with silver, but he doesn't disintegrate like everybody else.
Well, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I thought that the difference was that he stabbed him with silver in the shoulder and extremities.
Yeah,
so Blade presumably is a hell of a shot and is getting him in the heart.
Yeah, he does. I think he says the heart of the head at one point in the movie.
Sure.
Yeah,
but I mean, on the issue of what's the guy's name? Quinn. I think he lived to tell about it because the EMS and cops showed up immediately and they put him out.
Okay, so he's very badly, he's obviously burned well past a point that that a human being could live, but as a vampire, he's not at the point of no return. He's taken to the hospital. There is at the hospital, we are introduced to what is she? She's a blood researcher. Like,
oh, there's a name for that.
A
hematologist.
Yeah. There we go.
Hematologist or something.
Hematologist. Yeah, there we go. So, and her ex-boyfriend is like in the other room, like in the doing like is about to like do an autopsy or something of this. I'm not actually totally clear thinking back to it, like what his excuse is for like going to get her to like go see the, as they think at that point, corpse with him, but she does. At which point we find out that Quinn is not dead, and Quinn, we think, kill the ex-boyfriend, and he actually and he bites Quinn, but very quickly, or not Quinn, sorry, he bites. I'm actually blanking.
Hematologist.
The hematologist, right? He bites
Karen
the
is her name. Her name is Karen.
Karen.
In the movie.
Karen. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there's a whole it's a whole world before Karen met what it meant now. So there's so Karen he bites Karen, and but Blade interrupts this very quickly. He gets, and he takes he ends up taking care, so the cops come. One thing we find out very early in this movie is that the cops know all about the vampires and are they say like the vampires own them, and which I did wonder about in this scene, because when Blade is like leaving, like he's like carrying Karen and the cops are shooting at him, and it's like, okay, are they doing this because like they know that he's Blade, and like and they're willing to kill her as collateral damage, or because like if not, this is pretty bad, right? I mean, there's a hostage there who's like alive in his arms, and they're just gonna start shooting. But
and that's where Wesley Snipes has the line that stole my heart. And he looks at the cops. He's like, "Motherfucker, you crazy?"
I love that line. I thought of you when I watched that, Jason. And I was transported back to Passenger 57. Like, this is why I like Wesley Snipes. As long as
this movie. Another thing that I found really interesting when I first watched it, I did watch it in the theater, was that no one mentions that he's black.
Oh, that's true.
Like, that has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah,
another reason why I'm terrified to see what happens with Marvel doing this movie.
Yeah.
I'm sure critical race theory is going to play a part. Blade's going to get pulled over by the police. Vampires can't get no justice in a white man's world. Like, just ruin the whole fucking movie. Remember, they don't care, right? These vampires, there's some Ben will get to it. There's like a Jamaican
I was just thinking about
they're kind of like their own race, though, right? I mean, and of course, as Ben alluded to, there's a sub-race of vampires. There's two races of vampires, but then vampires themselves are their own race. And that's kind of like The Expanse, too. I mean, it's sci-fi, not horror, whatever. But the racial parameters are very different in The Expanse. And it makes sense that they would be, because if race is socially constructed, then it makes sense that the racial parameters would shift with whatever the political economic hierarchies are, right? And at least in The Expanse's case, too, you can make the point that those racial divisions make a lot more sense, because the Martians are being changed by the fact that they're living on Mars. The Belters are being changed physiologically by the fact that they live in very low gravity, or centrifugal force gravity space stations, right? But the black people, the white people, the Asian people, American Indians, Kiwis, whatever, in The Expanse, all those identities are basically gone because it's Earthlings, Martians, and Belters as racial identities. And I think there's a variation on the same theme happening with Blade too.
Yeah, that seems right. And and whatever. I mean, I mean, it's kind of, my sister lives in the UK, and something I used to like hit me, where I'd like once every few years I go over there, is and like I'd see like whatever the like god awful like Rupert Murdoch owned newspapers and stuff, and there we're talking about, it's like, oh, they make really it's like there's all this like weird like British racism that's directed against like, I don't know, like Croatians or Polish people or whatever, and it's like like that's it's like, no, those don't exist in the same way in the United States. Those are just all white people.
Yeah. Well, I thought, I might be wrong about this. It's in the UK that recently that Poles were classified as white other, which is in keeping with your point about the racism toward Croatians or whatever.
Yeah, no, totally, right. That they that fits, right. That they like, again, that they sort of make a distinction, right. In the US, their races are white, black, Asian. It's and speak Spanish, right? That's a race for some reason
That's
in the
it.
United States.
Yeah.
But yeah. But yes, the Vampire Nation is, in human terms, that doesn't seem to be an issue, right? In human terms, it's the sort of ruling council or whatever, which you see very soon here, is multiracial. But in vampire terms, they're very racially strict. So you see whatever they call the ruling, body of the Vampire Nation, which is sort of coded to look like a corporate board. They even there's even a point where they're like, oh, how are the Vampire Nation's offshore accounts doing?
They become corporate, right? That's like the whole thing. They integrate into human life because of alliance they make with humans, and they start making money. It's kind of a
like
common,
they live.
Right.
right. But isn't that the common joke in a lot of these 90s movies, even in Austin Powers? The whole thing where Dr. Evil comes back and he wants to do evil shit. And Robert Wagner's like, but why? We own all these Starbucks. We've quadrupled our money. Like, we're a legitimate company now. We've gone legit. We've done the thing. Dr. Evil's still like, well, I want to steal, even though that's what the joke is, $1 million. He's like, and that's kind of how the vampires are. And then you have this guy that isn't a true blood. The main villain, Deacon Frost, has his own identity issues.
Yes. So we see at this meeting they're reacting to the massacre at the Blood Rave, and they call in Deacon Frost. Now, I will say, like, sort of have an intuitive sense of who Deacon Frost is, what his relationship is to the rest of these people, but I think when you actually start thinking about it, it's very unclear, right? That because this looks like this is like the corporate board of Vampires Incorporated, and they're all purebloods, right? Is the term they use, right? They were all born as vampires, and then you've got this guy Deacon Frost, who somehow was a turned vampire, and somehow he owns a bunch of nightclubs, and he is sort of like, there are a lot of things about him that feel like he's like a gang leader, but like who exactly he is and like what his status is in the vampire organization, I think on this rewatch it had been enough years that like going back and rewatching it now I was like, wait, what? Like,
I
who
made
is
up
he?
in
How
my
does this
mind.
work?
I made up in my mind that he was kind of part of that entertainment side of the vampire world, right? Because they also need to have fun too. They can't just all be, boring clones making money. And he put the music festivals together. He found all the vampire hip hop talent and DJ talent, right? These nightclubs were a money making thing for him, using the blood banks and having like a Uber blood bank delivery service with law enforcement. This is where Deacon Frost comes in. He modernizes vampire capital, right? That's his job.
Or at the very least, it's a niche that the True Blood or whatever they would be. That's the wrong show and wrong vampire series. But the pure blood vampires don't want any part of. He gets the scraps. But I mean, it is the sort of young people stuff, right?
Yeah, he's Gen X. He's a Gen X vampire. He wants what he wants when he wants it.
Oh, he is Joel from Risky Business as a vampire.
That's who he's supposed to be.
Yeah.
A Gen X
That's
vampire.
who he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, look, guys, I'm making all this money with my blood raves and my vampire Coachella that I have planned for fall. And you guys are in the way.
Right.
Progress.
He's thinking outside of the box.
Definitely.
Outside of the vampire box.
Outside the vampire box. He's here. They're here.
Yeah. I mean, whoever he is, he clearly has some kind of status because he's able to stand in the middle of the the corporate board and talk shit to them and have them, they're like kind of insulting to him, but they're not like, you go down to the dungeon now, right? It's just kind of.
Well, no, I think he's the leader of the converts. I mean, I guess that's not the right word either, but he does seem to be in charge of the people who had been transformed by way of bites rather than born into vampirism.
We call those the proletariat vampires.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the lumpen proletariat, but yeah,
he's the Shay. He's the Shay of the vampire world. It's a very complicated story, Blade. You guys didn't get that part, but he is the Shay.
I don't know. I think the politics of that feel a little different to me.
But if you stop to think about it, like the vampires who are born vampires, so what that means is that female vampires can give birth. Mm-hmm. And then considering that vampires don't age on the same cycle as humans, except for Blade, right? Because that's the one downside to being a daywalker. Then how many decades would the baby vampire be nursing, let's say?
Oh, God.
And how many decades would it be in, I don't know, preschool? That would be it'd be 100 years, 150 years before it could even think about getting a learner's permit.
Wasn't that one of the problems with the little girl in the interview? Was it Interview with the Vampire?
Yeah, it was. Yep.
Yeah. Kirsten Dunst's character.
Kirsten Dunst, that's her name.
Yep. A brilliant performance. I was blown away by her performance. She was like 10 or something like that.
Was she that young?
Talking about love. She wasn't older than 12. And she talked about love like she had been in love with somebody too. I'm like, damn.
Well, that's where like let the right one in, and movies like that get really interesting when you have the little girl that's stuck being a little girl. And what does vampire do?
And do they get bored? Right? I mean, like, because assuming that they're intelligent entities as they would be, to be stuck in preschool, whatever, daycare for 50 years, it would be horrible. 10, however long it would be, years though, not
so I'm just imagining there's like snack time where they order a bunch of pizzas or something, so like multiple delivery guys show up, but yeah.
Breastfeeding baby vampires.
Yeah. So, all right. Wow, Matthew would go to that blood rave. I don't know how much you could possibly like that track. This is, I had somebody on call in the other day tell me that they would be willing to, do like Salman Rushdie and spend decades hiding out from the fatwa if they got to marry Padma at the end, which seems extreme to me. I don't think it's a good. I don't think it's a good deal, but yeah. So the other thing that comes out here that they introduce is, and again, I won't harp on this point, but Deacon Frost spends a lot of time just sort of vaguely hanging around the vampire headquarters in a way that makes me wonder what's going on there. But he's trying to translate these like ancient vampire texts that they refer to at one point as like the Vampire Bible. That has their whole history, which is a cool detail. I mean, it gives you some sense of how long-standing this is.
It's also probably the clearest expression of the extent to which Deacon Frost is thinking outside of the box, right? Because the pure blood vampires think he's a sucker for trying to make sense of this, and obviously he proves them wrong.
Yeah. No, fair.
So someone says, have you ever seen middle management vaguely hang around at headquarters?
It's what they do. Yeah, fair enough.
That's how he feels like middle management. And someone jokes they heard vampires hang at Bar Sinister in Das Bunker. Bar Sinister is a goth bar in LA. That's pretty funny. I played a show, or I didn't play a show. I was tour managing a band. and we were in a city called Metairie. Am I saying it right? Right, Metairie.
Oh, Louisiana.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And the bartenders, who were really nice, were vampires. They had the legit fangs, and kind of weirded me out in a way, because I'm like, you went the extra mile with your teeth, so I'm going to take you a little more seriously than the rest of the band, because that's a level of dedication that means you just might think this shit is real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you can, if you take on the moniker Sticky Fingers, you can change that. You can change that easily. Teeth, though, that's a whole nother level.
You're like, you know what? For the rest of my life, this is just what I'm going to do. I'm going to work at gothy bars in Southern Louisiana, scare the shit out of black dudes from California, because it worked.
It's still no Lafayette, though.
No. But
And I don't mean the character from True Blood either.
One of my favorite cities, Lafayette. Yes.
Ooh, there you go. So meanwhile, Karen back at Blade's Batcave is learning the basics about vampires. We've also by now been introduced to Whistler, who's the I don't know what a good analogy would be for what Whistler is to Blade, but
it's Chris Christopherson just being himself, right?
With a lot of technical expertise.
Yeah, well, that's Chris Christopherson, right? Chris Christopherson could come in my house right now and tell me how to fix the wiring on my TV that Touré can't stand.
But would he be able to come up with a blood serum for you that would allow you to forego eating people?
I would believe that.
While
I was
coming up
told a
with
long time
more
ago
weapons.
that Chris Christopherson was a problem in the 60s because he was just ruining marriages.
I
don't even know if I should ask a follow-up on that. I'm a little concerned about the answer.
Oh, man. I was like, well, I mean, this person always, if we talked about back in the day, he'd always bring up Chris Christopherson.
Wow.
Like that dude was just fucking up everything they had going on good.
Well, his character has an interesting arc in the trilogy, at least the first two. I don't know how they work that out, but whatever. We'll come back to that.
Yeah. So somebody says Alfred to Batman a little bit, right? Although he's not, it's certainly, certainly not anything like a butler, but they have, but like a little bit like Alfred, a little bit like, I guess, Q to Bond. But
well, I mean, Alfred, I think it's a great analogy because Whistler ended up raising Blade too, right?
Mm-hmm.
As well as
what did he see in young Wesley that made him go, I'm going to take you and make you the greatest vampire hunter the world has ever known? Like, good eye, Chris Christopherson. Good eye.
He said he had almost staked him.
Yeah, he said, I saw him feeding off the homeless. And I thought to myself, I'll put a leather coat on this guy. Negro haircuts.
But now you made Chris Christopherson sound a little bit like Ben's dad. Ben, is your dad Chris Christopherson?
Yeah, that's correct.
Chris.
Well, then you have the straight dope on all the marriages that he wrote.
Ben, get out of the room. Michelle Phillips is here. Get out of the room. It's Michelle Phillips. God damn, kid, you ruin everything. Go play with Mama Cass or something. Make a cake.
Yeah, when you first see Chris Christopherson, he's listed to Bad Moon Rising. I think it's the only time there's the only time that he's actually listening to music in the movie. But they make sure to get that for that first shot, so you have a sense of who he is. And so he saw he saw Blade feeding on the homeless. He gave but he decided he was redeemable. He invented some sort of blood serum for him. Crucially, it is an issue throughout the movie that Blade is building up an immunity to the blood serum, right? So it's not working as well as it used to. It's maybe very soon not going to work at all. And meanwhile, Karen it seems like they got her soon enough in the sort of mostly secularized vampires of Blade. I mean, there is a blood god, but but this is like mostly presented as a phenomenon of the natural world, right? That this is just this sort of physical condition, vampirism. Although they all seem to be evil except for Blade, so do with that what you want. But as part of that, if they catch you quick enough after being bitten, it's possible to head off the transformation. Karen was borderline, so they think that maybe they got her, but then it turns out that that she might be started to transform after all. It's a big issue. So she is going to try to figure out a cure.
In the 3 days she has left before she's out.
Yeah.
She's got to be either an amazing super genius or just a complete idiot, that she thinks she could do. It's like, well, I've only ever heard of this now, right?
Right.
Like the last hour. How long can it take to come up with this totally unforeseen medical development that breakthroughs? I don't know, a day, 2 days. I mean, I'm going to be helping Blade follow some guys around and interrogate them, so I don't have all day to devote to it. But I've got at least 4 hours to spend at the lab today.
Yeah, and you happen to have everything I need, just around.
Well, I hope they put her on HIV treatments after that, right? Because she could have come up with a cure for it like that.
Right, exactly.
She couldn't cure Whistler's cancer, though.
No.
Yeah. So,
nor that self-inflicted wound, which somehow he managed to skirt by the second film, but whatever. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
Did you like her character? Well, let me ask you guys this before you go on. Did you like her character in the movie, Ben?
Sure. I mean, it's fine.
Ray, you were fine with her?
I liked the idea of her character. I wasn't 100% sold on her performance. I thought it was uneven. But, I like the idea of her character.
Apparently, Wesley Snipes fought for her to be in the role because they wanted a white woman, hence her name being Karen.
I knew a lot of Black Karens. I mean, that's what I thought is odd about the current meaning of Karen or connotation of Karen.
It's totally fucked that thing up now.
Grew up with a bunch of Black Karens.
Yeah.
Parents had Black Karen coworkers and stuff, right? So
did they tell you that we're going to Black Karen's house? So put on your good shoes.
You didn't even need to say that back then, right? Now, if you're Black and named Karen, like, no, I'm Black Karen. Very much.
You didn't do that. You didn't have your friends. If you had two mics, it was white Mike. Like, who's Mike? It's Black Mike's house.
I did.
You didn't do that?
I did. Yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
Ben,
that's the easiest way to distinguish. It was
Ben's
awkward
afraid to admit he did it. Ben hella did it.
Yeah.
It's okay to say you did it, Ben. We all did it as kids. You had to just differentiate. Last names made too much sense.
Oh, see, that's why Jason knows that I can't stand Stranger Things for that very reason.
Because he thinks they're not racist enough.
It's not that they're not racist enough. It's that they don't mess with each other as boys that age back then would have along racial ethnic lines. They would definitely have fucked with each other.
In Indiana in the 80s.
In New Haven, Connecticut, let's say in the mid-1980s. There's not a lot of ethnic people in Indiana, actually. So
everybody knows Indiana in the 80s was so kind to the one Black kid.
I think Indiana in the 80s would have been really scary, actually, to be.
Have you been to Indiana now?
Hey, I have two friends. I'll only share one anecdote, both of whom are white ethnic, both of whom had issues in Indiana in the late 1990s. And the one that I'll share, one was Jewish and the other is Italian American. An Italian American buddy of mine got jumped in a bar in southern Indiana. He went there on a date, didn't realize where he was going. He wasn't from there. He's from Connecticut. And the good old boys at this, as he described it, redneck bar. We'll call it a hillbilly bar instead. But anyway, the good old boys did not like him on site. They jumped him, and they told him that his kind was not welcome there. This was, I think, 1997. And they decided he was Puerto Rican. And when he told me he's Italian American, I guess by white people's standards, he's tannable. But I don't think people generally thought he was Puerto Rican, where Puerto Ricans were. But I mean, one of the things that I was struck by is, well, when are Puerto Ricans coming up as an issue in Southern Indiana? I mean, I know that they saw Torres on New York Undercover or something, right?
It's close,
but
but
probably not a flood of Puerto Ricans going to Southern Indiana.
An influx.
When we moved him not long after that, because he left, he was working for a big company in Kentucky, and it wasn't his scene. He's not like a corporate guy. But I went with him. I was living in New York at the time. I went with him out there to move him back to Southern Connecticut. And we were in Southern Indiana about 15 minutes before I was insulted at the Ryder or U-Haul distributor, whichever it was. I don't remember which. And the guy who was running it at that time, and it was a long time ago, started going on about this big black monkey who he had to be on the phone with, who was his counterpart in Columbus, Ohio or someplace. I don't know. And this was like chewing tobacco, or tobacco, if you prefer, camo from head to toe country. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go to the car and I'll just wait. Yeah. I knew what time it was, and we were both very happy to leave. But yeah, Indiana, late 1990s was not the greatest. But Indianapolis is a fine city.
Fair enough. Disagree with Jake. Disagree with Jake, by the way. Says in the chat, Blade's love interests are always unremarkable. Leonor Valera and Blade 2 was awesome. So, we have a disagreement about that. But
Jason, I'm glad you pointed out that Wesley fought for the actress who played Karen, because I kind of assumed that he would, and I did appreciate the fact that character was black.
It's an interesting world when we think about what, even the Matrix. Neo doesn't go, Morpheus, who's your white boss? Like never crossed his mind. And as many times as people have seen the Matrix movies, that never crosses anyone's mind, right? Just Morpheus is badass, right? And the same thing can be said with Blade. He's just badass. This woman is just a doctor. Nothing's racialized in this movie. And even watching it in the theater, I remember taking that away, because I'm also coming from watching all these hood movies where everything is racialized in the hood movies, right?
Even when it's not, it is too, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, no, and I know. I mean, you, I'm sure, Jason, know the details of this. I don't. I know that as the franchise unfolded, Wesley Snipes was very unhappy, particularly by Trinity. I think that's the name of the third one. If I recall correctly, he was unhappy about his screen time, and he'd been displaced by Jessica Biel and by Jessica Biel and Ryan Reynolds. And what's the backstory on that? Since this seems like something you would know about. How did he get displaced?
Apparently, he was kind of over the whole thing by the time they got to Blade 3, and everyone that I've ever watched the interview on, Patton Oswalt actually talks about this a lot.
Yeah, because he was right?
a bit of a nightmare to deal with. Mm-hmm. A lot of the scenes you see with him and Ryan Reynolds, the reason why they're cutaways is because he was so stoned. That's why he wears. If you watch the first Blade, the glasses are rarely on.
Right.
The contacts from the glasses aren't in. By Blade 3, it's all glasses.
So it's like DeMond Wilson on Sanford and Son by season 4.
He had sunglasses on all the time?
By season 4 or 5, Red Fox was pissed off, and DeMond Wilson wasn't happy either, obviously. And certainly, I know in Red Fox's case, I think this was true of DeMond Wilson as well, that they thought that they were being dealt with in a racist way, that they weren't getting the kind of respect that, let's say, Carol O'Connor had gotten for having such a big show, which is certainly true in Red Fox's case. And what you see in the later seasons of Sanford and Son is in every scene that Lamont's in, he's stiff. He's got his hands behind his back, basically, and he's got sunglasses, like aviator sunglasses. of the 70s persuasion, kind of serial killers used to wear all the time,
Yeah.
sort of tinted, and the serial killer glasses. And he's clearly reading cue cards like the whole time. It's painful. I didn't notice when I was like 6 or whatever, but as a Sanford and Son fan, there's a point in the series that you can only watch because you're a fan, because it's not as strong because the actors aren't feeling it.
Well, yeah, apparently Ryan Reynolds did a bunch of scenes where he's just ad-libbing on his own, not even filming off Wesley because he just didn't want to be there. I don't remember if he had an issue with the storyline that much.
I mean, I should
over it.
I don't know. I don't know how you guys felt about the sequels, but I mean, like looking back on it, right? So I saw Blade a bunch of times, many times. I saw both of the sequels like once in the theater, but I even though Blade 2 was like, I think if you like kind of take a step back and like think about it, like did a lot of the absolutely ridiculous things that sequels do. It's like the sort of Jurassic World. I don't know. What if the dinosaurs were bigger, right? It's like, what if they're like, I don't know, super vampires that hunt the vampires? It's like it's a kind of like lazy like writer's room thing. But I still remember that being an awesome movie. Like I really enjoyed the shit out of Blade 2. Whereas like Blade 3, even when I watched, is kind of like, eh.
Yeah, they'd gone back to the well one too many times, but Blade 2 was good. I think Blade 2 was very strong, and I think it wasn't the best performer of the 3.
Yes,
probably. Yeah,
Guillermo del Toro has a different feel than the original writers, and of course, each movie is made by different people, and by the time you get to 3, you have the blow up of the Marvel universe now with the X-Men movie. So Blade 3 kind of feels like you're trying to introduce more characters for more action figure sales.
Yeah, that's true. But, Jason, there's something you said a while back that I want to come back to, and you made reference to the Kung Fu, the role of martial arts in the film. And, of course, when I was watching this, I probably had seen it in the last 3 years, maybe. But so it's been a few years since I watched it. But I was struck by how much it reminded me of The Matrix. And one of the reasons that it reminded me of The Matrix was the prominent role played by Kung Fu, right, in that line fighting that you were talking about. And I have to say, I think that's actually one of the reasons that this is the only superhero so-called live action superhero franchise that I watch. Partly because it does feel more like a live action film, because there's very little CGI. There's certainly CGI in it. There has to be some. But in the first one in particular, as you said, very little CGI. Blood God, as we talked about, sucked. Could have been worse. We'll find out how much worse later. But there's a sort of humanity, oddly enough, to the film, because even though it's a stupid comic book film, right? Because it's real people doing stuff. Even if they're on pulleys, it's still real human beings, you can tell. And Wesley Snipes is a real martial artist, too. And that was another element of the character that I thought worked very well.
Like I said, I just watched this movie with Jamie Foxx last night, Day Shift on Netflix. And apparently they even brought in Cirque du Soleil, contortionists that were out of work from COVID. To really flip the whole script on how vampires were. So they were entering the room, how these new horror movies are, where they have contortionists do the thing where they come backwards and all that. That was really cool, actually. And the fight scenes, the choreography and the fight scenes kind of harken back to Blade. So watching that brand new movie that just got released 2 weeks ago, David Russell Day Shift, is entertaining, very entertaining. And then watching Blade, I was like, man, this choreography is so good to hold up this many years later.
Yeah. Kill Bill's like that too.
I just watched Morbius again. I just watched Morbius, which is a vampire comic book film that's supposed to be dark, and the fight scenes were all CGI. And it just took so much away from what could have been an interesting film. It was like, it was a movie. It was there. I was like, I guess.
Well, Jared Leto never fully recovered from that axe to the face that Christian Bale put on him back in 1999. So I think you're being unfair, Jason. He couldn't do the stunts.
Jared Leto was not the reason why that movie was not very good.
Okay.
Well, this movie was very good.
This
and,
movie was fucking excellent.
Yes.
Jared Leto could not have fucked this up.
I don't dislike Jared Leto. I kind of enjoy his work.
He could have played Frost, and the movie would have still been badass. You don't think so?
No, I would be fine with it. It's just
Steven Dorff is the kid from The Gate.
When phrasing it that way, it was a backhanded compliment. At Leto's expense, to be clear. Even Jared Leto could have played that part, and it still would have been a dope movie.
If Jared Leto messages any of us, I was watching you on Burgis. Thanks for the words. Like if that.
Hey, it's coming to you. I like Leto just fine. I thought he even pulled off those plats in that movie he did with Jodie Foster. That
still don't understand that.
About.
Still don't understand that. Who wrote that?
A weird choice.
Who said that, Jared? We need you to do this for real.
Yeah. And I want to be clear, I was joking when I said that he pulled it off because it was ridiculous.
Panic Room is the film.
Panic Room,
I went to the theater to see that.
What?
I know, it's like punching yourself in the dick.
I could see if you were 17 when it came out, because what else could you do legally?
Well, you know, when you're like in a young relationship, when you're a young person in a relationship and going out to you and you don't have money.
Right.
So going out, like, we're going to the movies. Like, yeah. Panic Room, yeah.
I kind of saw The Ninth Gate like that. It was a double date situation. And unfortunately, if you've seen The Ninth Gate,
15
there's a lot of buildup, but the tension release is inadequate to the buildup. It needed
much
to be
like
20
that marriage
minutes.
I was in watching those movies also.
There you go. I think it had been about 20 minutes shorter, then it might have worked in the end. Like the payoff might have been worthwhile, but there needed to be more payoff. And
there was not a lot of payoff in The Ninth Gate.
And imagine being on a date in that situation. It's a long movie going nowhere as far as your date can tell.
And you just looked over and like, hope this ain't a metaphor for tonight.
So I remember one of the things that yeah, really? I'm just moving on at this point. So,
how do I not get canceled?
So
metaphor.
So on one track, Blade is searching for Deacon Frost, and Karen is following him around like pretty much constantly, but she must have snuck in like 15 minutes in a lab somewhere to like come up with like 3 amazing breakthroughs. She's got the thing that explodes the vampire blood. I think she actually has like a vaccine, but it won't work on Blade.
And a bioweapon.
And she doesn't
20
sleep.
minutes.
Yeah, she doesn't sleep at all. Blade, where you finna go? You finna leave me here with this old raggedy ass white man?
Meanwhile, Deacon Frost is carrying out a coup within the Vampire Nation. He has the main pureblood vampire. There is this. I remember. I mean, this is one of like the thing about Blade. It's like it's a movie where there are like 3 or 4 pieces of imagery that like really stick in your head for the movie. One of them is obviously the blood coming from the ceiling. The rave at the beginning. But definitely one of them is the vampire coup scene where they Deacon and his entourage take the kidnapped leader of the Vampire Nation out to the beach and put on motorcycle helmets, and so they can stand there while the sun burns him alive.
But first, before the helmets, they had they're putting on sunscreen, which I was like, that's it.
Yeah, no, that is actually, I didn't quite get that when I was watching that scene this time, but then of course there was the thing where he was wearing sunscreen later to talk to Blade, and yeah, that does seem like kind of a cop out, because if that's all it takes for a vampire to be in the daylight, then like being a daywalker is not nearly as big a distinction as it sounded like it was.
But was it a cop out or was it copper tone?
Oh,
There it is.
but they put on the helmets. Like the scene Ben is talking about.
Yeah.
Again, rewatching it before I got on with you guys, I was like, that is kind of badass. And they had the helmets on. Another thing we're not talking about with this movie, speaking of that scene and the blood rave, the cinematography actually is really good in this movie.
Excellent. I mean, this is the era of quick cuts, which I hated, but they used them tastefully, which is a funny thing to say. But the way that the quick cuts, like in the car chase scenes, for example, that was spot on. I mean, it had almost a kind of graphic novel vibe.
Yes. Yes. The scene where they pull back and you see Udo Kier's character, who is, I mean, he hasn't let me down in a movie yet. And you see the motorcycle helmets and the leather. That's not real complex costume work when you think about it. But it just, for that era, that was like, this is badass. Because again, we're getting over the camp. Remember what the kind of death nail of these superhero movies is Arnold Schwarzenegger as Dr. Freeze.
Dr. Freeze.
People are like, what the fuck is this? Jim Carrey as the Riddler.
That wasn't as bad as Arnold Schwarzenegger's.
Let's make some ice. Yeah. No, just amazing. Yeah, I just it's actually funny. I just watched. I told Jason this. I just watched Predator the other day, and I was thinking about how much I preferred his early work. You know, walking around the jungle yelling about the chopper, to his later work, cutting budget special services in Indians, California. Definitely prefer that earlier short.
Well, hell, I mean, if you just keep it acting, he was better as a barbarian and as a cyborg than he was as a secret agent who had actual lines to read, right?
This is also very true.
He did get better as an actor. Maybe, though, not as a governor.
He directed one of my favorite episodes of Tales from the Crypt.
Schwarzenegger? Which one? Which episode?
The one where the old man is dating the late Kelly Preston, and she won't marry him because he's old. And so he gets Rick Rossman, I think is his name. The guy that was the love interest in Roxanne with Steve Martin, that guy.
Okay.
Can't think of his name. And he gets him to basically transplant his face on him, and then ultimately these transplants keep costing him his fortune. Kelly Preston still won't marry him now that he's a hot buff dude, so she marries the old him because he's older,
which is very similar to a Twilight Zone episode.
Many of those were.
But I didn't realize Schwarzenegger directed that one. That was the old dude who was in
Grizzly's Honor.
I don't know. I was
Creep
thinking
Show?
Tales from the Crypt, the movie.
Creep Show?
No.
Creep Show.
Not Tales from the Crypt, the movie, and it probably was Creep Show.
You're not talking about Creep Show?
I
actually just watched Creep Show.
From the Dark Side. Tales from the Dark Side, the
there we
movie.
go.
Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. That's him.
Was that? I thought it was Creep Show with David Johansen.
The guy I'm thinking of, and Dave. Yes, it was Tales from the Dark Side, the movie.
You sure it's not? What was the Creep Show ones?
This one was with the cat. Tales from the Dark Side, the movie with the cat.
Yeah, Cake was Creep Show.
Okay. Yeah. You win. It was Tales from the Dark Side. You win.
Yep.
You win this time, Touré.
Julianne Moore was in the first vignette.
Yes.
Tales from the Dark Side.
That's an all-star cast. Christian Slater, Julianne Moore, the
Buscemi.
Buscemi, Steve Buscemi. Yep. Lot 239.
Yep, with the mummy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this was the same old dude from the cat one with
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Yep, I remember that episode.
Nice.
Can you get Tales from the Crypt on streaming or
YouTube?
Sure.
There's a person that's streaming all the Tales from the Crypt in its entirety in whole seasons on YouTube.
Really?
Mhm.
Is it SD? Is it still SD? Not
You have to see.
So,
I don't know how
this
they're
is hilarious. I just tried. I was going to type in is Tales from the Crypt available on streaming service, and when I started typing it is Tales from the Crypt, what automatically filled in was is Tales from the Crypt the same as Creepshow? I guess that's the most commonly asked question. Starts with the phrase "is Tales from the Crypt."
Okay, so Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, is the real Creepshow 3.
Okay.
There's a whole issue with licensing and an issue that Spielberg and Romero were having with the licensing shit. So there is a Creepshow 3. It's horrible. Don't watch it. Tales from the Dark Side had all the same people. I think Savini, that does all the makeup stuff, he came in for Tales from the Dark Side.
That makes sense. Was
That is
that be Harry in it too?
That's the
the
real
first Creepshow. Is the second one good?
Yeah. It's not as good, but it's entertaining. Same way.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so
And watch
there
the
is
series on Shudder.
okay. There we go.
Ooh, yeah, good call.
It's not without its charm.
Fair enough. So Deacon Frost put it on the sunscreen, which is good enough, which is amazing. Has a makes this weird half-assed attempt to tempt Blade to join the vampires. That like a really weird attempt actually, because like this guy is has devoted his entire life to killing you, and like you think that like 90 seconds of like, oh, but but think about how awesome it would be, while you're holding this little girl hostage, so he doesn't kill you is going to be enough. Crucially, when he's done, Deacon Frost throws the little girl into the street, and Blade does go try to save her. Right? It's like what's the stupid screenwriting book? Save the cat. Right? That he shows that he does have heart. But of course, what we find out is that is shockingly Deacon Frost had an ulterior motive. Because somehow or another, once he's decoded, he's translated the vampire scrolls. It turns out that the key to calling forth the blood god, La Magra, which is also kind of funny, is like the vampire scrolls written in Spanish. But anyway, whatever. If so, it would have been easier to translate them. But in any case, the key to calling him forth or turning Deacon Frost into the blood god, I guess, is they need Blade's blood. So once they can't tempt him over, what they decide as plan B is they go into Blade's Batcave and they kidnap or they kill Whistler, or almost kill him, right? Leave him very close to death, and kidnap Karen as bait. Whistler tells Blade what's going on, and then gets him to give him the gun, so he can shoot himself before he becomes a vampire, or so you think. Apparently, if you watched Blade 2, Whistler's still around. I guess he missed, but I don't remember a selection.
Right? Except they do flash back on his body. You don't see his head. You just see blood on his body right after the fact. And in a sequel, Norman Reedus plays the apprentice to Whistler, doesn't he? In the second
I vaguely remember this, yeah.
Yeah,
that's right. I think I might actually watch Blade 2 tonight. This is it's been
because Norman Reedus' character is actually pretty good in that. the double cross.
Don't
Right.
take it away from Ben.
Well, I did watch this movie.
A long time ago, though, right? It hasn't been.
Yeah, I did actually remember that
Okay.
plot point. Well, actually, probably attribute to it to the movie that I watched it once in what year did that even come out? It was like 2002,
maybe.
Was it 2002 that came out? They waited that long to make a sequel?
I think, but don't hold me to that. I mean, you're the expert, Jason.
I just honestly, I have IMDb open right now.
2002. Yeah.
No shit. That's a long time to make a sequel.
It is.
They didn't waste much time on the third one, though. I think that came out.
No, that came out like right after.
But again, when we talk about sequels, like, and you think about things getting stale, The Matrix is a huge success by this point, massive success, and they have sequels. And Blade 2 is nothing like the first one.
It's true.
It's so different.
Yeah, and it is a tribute actually to how much, again, as much as like the premise sounds like some incredibly lazy sequel shit, it is a tribute to how fun and how compelling that whatever a pulp story is. That I watched that movie exactly once, and it was 20 years ago, and I actually think I pretty much remember everything in that movie. Yeah. But yeah, so Whistler, we think, shoots himself. Blade, even knowing obviously that it's a trap, walks into it, and of course, kills everybody. Is very, very effective, but he doesn't quite stop. There are some complications here. He runs into his mom, who has been kept, who's with Deacon Frost.
His
Sanaa Lathan.
I'm going to say very young Sanaa Lathan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she is so well.
My wife and I both have crushes on Sanaa Lathan.
Well, can you imagine how much it
totally
sucks for
different
Blade?
reasons.
Can you imagine how much it sucks for Blade though? Everyone's like, dude, we totally revived your hot mom. Bro.
Yeah.
Look at your mom, bro.
Now, the one thing I did kind of choke on in that scene, rewatching it, is do Blade's vampire powers, including remembering things that happened in the first minute of his existence, he actually remembers his own birth?
His mother.
That's gotta suck. Because another thing they don't say about vampires is they're all circumcised. So he had to remember that. So that's
I get, and you would know that because of when you were at that bar in Metairie.
Yeah, they would tell me.
I thought it was just some sort of.
What about the crosses with you guys? They're like, we're Jewish. What do you know?
I was just going to go there, but Jason went there for me. So I was going to say it's not the
not that effective.
Yeah. Sorry, the casual anti-Semitism distracted me. Where was I going with this? Yeah, so Blade has this flashback where he remembers his birth, and so he immediately knows who this woman is. Like, it's not just some like random, black girl vampire. It's like, oh, I'm your mom, and he's like, oh, really? Are you?
What the scene really is where Deacon Frost is like, okay, Eric, is it? That's your real name. We have to tell you something. I'm really your dad. I'm your vampire dad, and I'm kind of your real dad. So I'm your all kinds of dad, Blade. So this is hard for you to swallow right now, but drink it in for a little bit. And it looks like your mom's genes were a little stronger than mine, surprisingly.
Now, I didn't catch the real dad piece there. I know vampire father, yes. So Blade's supposed to be biracial?
In our retelling of it, yes.
Oh, thank you.
No, she's pregnant beforehand. She's pregnant beforehand.
Yeah, I was going to say that I don't remember anything like
that.
But
Blade has two daddies, and he didn't even have to go on.
We don't know his real dad because Papa was a Rolling Stone.
Right. Yeah, he left. He just left as soon as she was left for dead. He didn't stick around to get to know the vampire version.
Stanley wrote in all the underclass ideology you could handle. What about his father? Make him leave. Those guys leave, right? They leave.
Uh-oh. You should probably let that go.
Well, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby are still the same guys. When the Black Panther Party came to be, they changed the name of the character. They didn't want any Leopard Man. Call him Leopard Man. That doesn't sound radical.
No, it sounds like something out of Fredericks of Hollywood, though. Not the right vibe, Not for that.
Although isn't there, like, I remember seeing this, somebody post this panel from like comic book panel where Black Panther, presumably in the era when the party exists, is like actually addressing the party as like, oh, this is just like basically like says, I have no opinion about this, political party.
It is a funny coincidence that these names are the same.
And they were months apart, the formation of the Black Panther Party and Black Panther
prominence, them coming to prominence and actually being like a thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When was the Black Panther comic book?
Around 64, I think.
Is it okay?
Let's look. Everything the internet helps us find these things at a rapid rate.
It's true. It's true. So also there's it's a throwaway thing in the movie, but it's a fun detail that we find out that when Karen's ex-boyfriend was not killed, was also not quite turned into a vampire in the normal way, that like this is whatever. I'm not going to get too bad at this movie for it, but like there's a lot of as you know, Bob dialogue, right? As you know, Bob, this is how things work, right? That like there's like the two, as I think it's Deacon and Quinn are like dragging her over to where her ex-boyfriend is, and they're like, yeah, it's funny, it happens sometimes, right? That like something goes wrong when a vampire is turned, and so they come out as like almost more like a zombie. And so there is this little confrontation between Karen and her now. Actually, when they said he was more like a zombie, I was expecting, like he just seemed like a maybe, I don't know, like a somewhat slow vampire, but whatever.
Interestingly, that failed turn or whatever you'd call it, the zombie-like one, Karen's ex-boyfriend, that's more like what vampires had been in folklore. It's post Bram Stoker, if not Bela Lugosi, that they became more. Actually, it's post Bela Lugosi that they became more glamorous. But in origin, I think they were actually a lot more like what zombies would be. Because when you stake them, you didn't kill them. The point of staking them in the coffin was to lock them down, right? So
right.
It was a long stake.
Right.
Had a big flat end. It was like a giant thumbtack of a stake is what it was.
And these vampires in Blade aren't debonair either.
No, they're kind of Euro trashy.
Yeah,
the young
that's a good call.
Sure.
Both of you, annoying and Euro trashy. Yeah, they're kind of douches. Deacon Frost has no game with Karen, but your skin tone's so cool. I'm like,
going to nightclubs at that time, there was some verisimilitude to that whole dynamic. His whole thing seemed very, very real to me, which was part of the appeal, perhaps. But,
like even his outfits too look straight into like Express for Men in Club Monaco.
Wilkie Rodriguez.
Oh
yeah. Well, even like I guess like even like Nosferatu, right? That's the first movie adaptation of Dracula, and like he's pretty animalistic. Like
not a sexy man.
No, no, not at all. Right?
But he does like the Tobe Hooper, Salem's Lot.
Yeah,
that vampire was taken from Nosferatu. That was a great vampire.
Yes, we should actually do Salem's Lot.
The
Yeah,
original.
I would do that.
The original.
Yes, the
Yeah.
original, of course.
Because
I
that
know
other one was horrendous.
See,
But there's a new one coming. There's a theatrical release coming out this year for Salem's Lot.
okay, that's interesting.
Another
Yeah.
remake.
Yeah, but this one with the proper budget, right? Since it's a theatrical release.
I definitely saw the original Salem's Lot. I can remember that was like, yeah, I guess not,
On
well,
regular
must not have
TV.
been as good as Blade 2 because I don't remember it that well, that was like
It's on
19
on Prime, and I was in grade school. Scared the hell out of me.
Oh, it came on regular TV for me. If there's any Bay Area people watching, Channel 44 used to always play Salem's Lot around Halloween. And I remember I tried to watch it and it scared the bejesus out of me. And I had to like walk up to the TV at my grandparents' house. You know, you turn it with the knob like this. And I had to turn that shit to PBS. I was like, fucking, I'll just understand Doctor Who. I just can't. I was like, fuck this.
I had that reaction. I think I was like 2 when The Exorcist came out or something. 2 or 3. It was probably 3. And whenever those commercials would come on, I'd have to leave the room screaming or whatever. And Twix bars commercials did the same thing to me.
Weird.
Yeah. And I do. Andy in the chat mentions Shadow of the Vampire, which I remember and I was thinking of with Nosferatu.
Willem Dafoe was Nosferatu.
Yeah, exactly.
That movie was a disappointment, though.
Well, did you guys watch What We Do in the Shadows?
Yeah, well, I'm actually I mentioned that earlier. So I've seen the movie. Like Jen and I are like about 2/3 the way through the show. So that
Is the show as good as the movie?
Yeah, I mean it's very similar to the movie. It's I mean it's fun. It's like I said, it made it a little jarring. I actually at dinner last night. We've been watching What We Do in the Shadows with dinner. And the dinner last night, I was like, "Can we watch The Simpsons?" Because I think that the What We Do in the Shadows is going to be too jarring to transition to watch Blade right after.
I didn't even know it was a show till I was driving through LA this last week, and I saw the huge billboard for it, and I was like, "Oh, they made a show of this." Because I just showed the lady friend we just watched What We Do in the Shadows while she was down here and laughed our behinds off.
I am not familiar with it, so briefly.
Oh, dude, just watch it. It's like a reality show where vampires they're living together. So a Nosferatu, an Anne Rice vampire.
Okay.
What else?
And there were a couple of cartoons like that with superheroes and the like, but
yeah, I mean it's a little bit like that. It's like a very like sort of done very straight, just kind of like it's like a reality show, just in the sense that there's like all of this like sort of like scenes where people are monologuing to the camera about what's going on, and it is. I actually think we're not making it sound as good as it is, but
it's really funny. The people that do Flight of the Conchords.
Okay.
Tiki.
Now, do Flava Flav and Brigitte Nielsen have parts in it?
No.
Oh, that's kind of disappointing. I was kind of imagining the vampire version of The Surreal Life or something.
No, it's. Do you know the guy that did the Thor Ragnarok?
No.
What else did he do that you would know?
The point is, I should check it out, though. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's pretty funny.
Is it on Prime or where is this?
I saw it on Prime.
Okay, cool.
But again, my Prime is different than your Prime.
Oh, right. Good point.
I got to pay for it.
So, so Karen has escaped from the Nosferatu
clutches of her. Yes.
Clutches of her ex. Blade has been drained of his blood in the ceremony. This is all, by the way, taking place in a building called the Temple of Eternal Night, which is just cool. So
sounds like a new goth club in downtown Atlanta, huh?
It totally does.
Now, Ben, have you gone there with your father? Jason, what would that scenario be like? I'm just curious.
Ben's dad doesn't come visit.
There we go.
I'm not coming to Atlanta. It's hot there.
All right. That's fascinating. So Blade's been drained of his blood, but Karen invites him to drink from her, which in terms of metaphors about how nights go and stuff is is as close as this movie is going to come to is going to come to consummating that, and then that energizes him, so he can go out and kill all of the vampires. There is, again, so I vaguely remember for the DVD extra feature, I said this earlier, that they did originally they had like Deacon Frost do much more of a transformation into the blood god, whereas like the whole body was like somehow like blood, and they just decided that looked stupid, which was a correct call. They actually
like the Kool-Aid Man.
Pizza the Hut.
Yeah,
Pizza the Hut of blood. That's who it was. Like a lava monster of blood, something like that.
Yeah.
He looked like a doughy version of like the demon from Legend.
Yeah, I mean it was still dumb when they had the thing where Blade could like slice him in half and he was like connected with blood or whatever. That still looked pretty dumb, but then for some reason Blade could,
would have been a hell of a screensaver though. Especially for 1998 shit. They had the best screensaver in
like the one that
way better than flying toasters that I started college with.
Oh, I had a flying toaster screensaver.
They were pretty cool.
Yeah.
But the blood god would have been better. No question.
Well, there's a tech person out there somewhere that can make that happen, where Touré can have a screensaver that is Steven Dorff getting cut in half, but he turns back into Steven Dorff from The Gate.
I didn't realize it was the same dude. I wondered where I knew him from all those years. And I saw The Gate, I think, in the theater. Was that 86 or 87 or something like that?
85?
Was it 85? If it was 85, I didn't see it in the theater. It was 86.
Ben doesn't know about playing records backwards.
Was that the heavy metal one?
Yeah, that was one.
Yeah, I saw that in the theater for sure. I think it was 86 or 87.
Where they played the record backwards, and they played it. There was two backwards ones, and there was one where if you played the record forward, it went Robert. So the guy had to play it backwards to get the message.
Oh,
that was Trick or Treat with Skippy Handelman.
I enjoyed Trick or Treat. You can't find that one, or at least I haven't been able to find it. That was pretty good because Alice Cooper and Ozzy were in that one too, right?
Gene Simmons is in that.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Gene Simmons, as
for what it was,
man as he is, great actor in shitty 80s movies.
Yeah, what was that robot movie he did with Kirstie Alley and Tom Selleck?
Runaway?
Yeah, that's it.
Great.
That was very well done.
What was the one he did with Vanity and John Stamos? Where he's a trans... he's a hermaphrodite crime lord that's trying to poison Los Angeles' water supply with Robert Englund.
That sounds as uncomfortable as Big Trouble in Little China, man. That's something. Damn. What year was that?
There's no way in the world this motherfucker is serious. I'm being totally serious.
What year was that one?
This is 80. This is before Stamos does Full House, and Vanity is it's like 86. It's called something about the young.
Oh,
it's supposed to be like a James Bond, kind of like a young James Bond thing, where John Stamos is a spy and a gymnast all rolled in one.
Damn. Well,
84, like 84, 85.
So the Vanity thing. Pause for a second because you reminded me of something. Blade, I don't know if this is right, but at least in the modern era of action films, was one of the first black action film or first action films with a black star, but it wasn't the first. Carl Weathers and Action Jackson, again, are the modern era of action films where they've got the one-liner, so post Schwarzenegger, we'll say.
You're talking about black leads.
Black leads in action films, yes. So Action Jackson, starring Carl Weathers, and Vanity was in it. She's why I went to see that film, but I also like Carl Weathers, who played high school football against my father way back in the day. They went to rival high schools. They're about a year apart in age.
I'm still shocked that Carl Weathers is from the South.
He's from New Orleans, man.
He went to Never Too Young to Die. He plays Velvet Von Ragnar and Carruthers. Never Too Young to Die is the movie with Vanity and John Stamos and Robert Englund.
And Gene Simmons.
Gene Simmons plays a hermaphrodite crime lord. It's kind of got that Mad Max in LA.
Okay.
With a gymnast.
Okay.
You know, also that 84 Olympics. You got to throw in like Jim Cotta. You got to throw in all that.
Oh yeah, Jim Cotta.
American. What was the one with Mitch Gaylord, where it was like Prince.
American Anthem.
Yeah, you
same director as Purple
He's
Rain.
a gymnast from the wrong side of the tracks. Like you got to.
And Andy Taylor of Duran Duran, his first solo endeavor was the soundtrack, or at least a portion of the soundtrack to American Gymnast or whatever.
American Anthem, yeah.
American Anthem, yes.
Another movie I watched entirely too much because I had.
It was on. Yeah, that was on in high rotation. I think it wasn't in the theater very long.
No, but I love the scene where he was he had to work out in his backyard gym because he was too much of a rogue gymnast, and he came in with his gym outfit, but he had a black leather coat. So it's like Fonzie in a leotard. Ben is like, these motherfuckers are making all this shit up. No, it's a real movie, Ben.
You watched that Final Destination movie with the gymnast scene?
No, the first one scared me.
I only ever watched the first Final Destination.
That's the best one. No shock. I've seen them all. But what had been the last one, and I don't know if it is actually still the last one. And it's a sort of wraparound story too. So it really did work as the final destination. Had a gymnastic scene that was horrifying. After the first one, and it's horrifying in the ways that you would anticipate, I think, because it's gymnastics and it's Final Destination. But I think the first two were pretty strong. I mean, the first one I really liked. After the second Final Destination, it was just like, all right, what are the sadistic ways that we can kill people, period? So it almost followed like the trajectory of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise.
Well, don't you get scared when a water bottle falls when you're driving?
So following the trajectory of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise would mean that like
gets sillier and
because that would mean that you have the first one is like amazing. The second one is sort of unwatchable, like interested as it. So the second one, second Nightmare on Elm Street was the one. I mean, it's like interesting.
It had the subtext of social commentary, but the film
the subtext was interesting in number two.
But the film,
but as a movie, it was awful, right? And that was. I actually had I had a friend who used to refer to number two as the Rainbow Nightmare, and I was like, yeah, he seems to be on to something. And then I remember watching a documentary about this movie where they were like, yeah, we just kept on putting in more gay subtext to see how much we could get away with. And it turned out all of it, right? That they could just keep going and going.
The Rainbow Nightmare.
And then the third one.
And then the third one is actually
kind of bounces back.
Exactly. It's like that's
third one was great.
But the third one is by
one I saw
far the best of the sequels, right? I mean, that's
and then after that,
is real bad again. Yeah.
Now I actually did not see the second one until probably about 10 years ago. So for me, the order of the films is 1, 3, 4, because that's really the order that I saw them in. Mm-hmm. I don't know why I didn't see the second one. Maybe I was just a little too young. Or maybe a better way to put it is I didn't have any friends old enough to have licenses to drive us to the theater at that point. And eventually, and I had to rely on friends because I was always grounded. So I didn't have a driver's license until I was 21 years old. Right. So, so maybe that's why I didn't see the second one until about 10 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, man, we all like that would almost be a good opening for Jason to do Reed Senior if we didn't actually know that.
His dad is going to sound just like yours.
Well, you know what? And that's a given, right? That's a given. That's your dad voice, which is a take on Eddie Murphy's dad's voice.
Is an old Jewish man. My dad is an old Jewish man. If I do an impersonation of him, no.
My dad kind of likes Blade. I mean,
Okay.
there are a lot of caveats. My dad likes vampire movies, or at least he used to. I actually bought him like a Christopher Lee. I don't know if it was a box set or classic, or single classic film. And The Fearless Vampire Hunters, which is a Roman Polanski film, was one of my dad's favorite films, escapist films, horror films, as a young man. And he turned me onto it, and I bought him that for Christmas or Father's Day or something like that. But my dad kind of likes Blade. And one of the things that he likes about Blade is, and a lot of caveats, is the relationship between the vampires and the familiars. And he has some contemporary corollaries that exist in his mind, which I will not discuss. But in some of his writing, I think, and certainly on a couple of interviews, he's made reference to X type of individual being Y type of individual's familiar. I'll let my father indicate who these categories of people are. But they're political. Nothing else.
Yeah, and of course,
See,
the thing about familiars, they're never actually turned. You know, it's always
right.
held
That's
out as
the point. And my dad will frequently cite Blade's line to the familiar cop, I guess, where he says, you know, don't you know to them you're just food, right? Or something to that effect. But I can say my dad did not care for the blood god elements of the story. I was fine with that element of the story. I just wasn't cool with I wasn't into the execution.
Yeah, which reminds me that J. Andrew World says YouTube censored his comment, but Stephen Dorff's blood god looked like the Kool-Aid Man naked.
Oh yeah. That is an excellent
the blood
analogy.
god. I'm totally gonna bone down your mom, dude. That's how Stephen Dorff. I watched it again today. That's how he kind of came off. In watching it again, I thought to myself, you know, nothing against Stephen Dorff. He had an interesting Hollywood career, but who else could have played Deacon Frost? I was also watching this new Blade, thinking to myself, how are you going to redo it? Are you going to say that this isn't canon and you do a whole new origin story? Are they going to go too far back and make it boring and show like a little kid? Because one thing I liked about this movie too is the origin story is told to you in 10 seconds.
Right.
Found him in the street, eating somebody, his mom, done. It's all you needed. Give me more action. Are they going to keep that, or are they going to make the whole movie the origin story? Because in the anime, the Deacon Frost character is way more sinister. And not as like, you know, you guys I think hit the nail on the head, annoying Euro trashy, Gen X Euro trashy. Like this Deacon Frost was at Woodstock 99.
Yeah. Well, I got a question, Jason, and I think you've alluded to something that I wanted to ask you about, which is Stephen Dorff's career, because after this, he had done this horrible movie, horror sci-fi movie called, I think it was called Alone in the Dark or something like that. Maybe it was based on a video game with Touré Reed, maybe, if I'm remembering that correctly. Early 2000s. And then after that, I saw him as a pitchman for e-cigarettes. But it seemed like he had a career.
He's got a career.
And he's good he was good at this role, if nothing else. He was a fine enough child actor. What happened to his movie?
Well, first of all, he never really grew. He's not very.
He's about 5'7", something like that.
Yeah, he's just not a very tall man, and he was in some okay movies. He's in a prison movie with Val Kilmer that was kind of popular in the straight to video world, where he's like a regular dude that accidentally kills somebody and goes to prison.
Well, damn, what happened to Val Kilmer's career? We'll talk about that later.
Right? Yeah. He's got a thing in his throat.
Is that right?
There's a documentary about Val Kilmer on Amazon. I believe it's called Val. Val Kilmer has a son.
Okay.
Who is a very promising young actor. He was in the movie Body Bags.
Okay.
Which tells the story of how Obamacare is manipulated in the drug rehab world, and
Mhm.
I think it's a bit of an over exaggeration, but it's still a pretty interesting film with the late Michael, who's the guy that with the slash that just died.
Yeah, Omar from The Wire. I
Was
can't
it
remember
really
his
Michael
last name.
something? Yeah,
Michael something or other.
he's in it. That's good.
Mhm.
So yeah, Val Kilmer made I guess he walked around with a VHS recorder for the majority of his career and recorded a lot of behind the scenes stuff. So this documentary is literally Val Kilmer going through decades of VHS tape and talking about different moments of his life.
Wow.
It's very
Michael
sad.
K. Williams.
Michael K. Williams, yeah. No, it's the Val Kilmer thing is very sad because he can't talk anymore.
He was a good actor, as I recall it.
Oh man, a real genius. We could do
yeah, that was
Real
my
Genius.
introduction. Well, what Top Secret or something like that was his first film,
Top Secret
and
was
then
very funny.
Real Genius shortly thereafter. And he was good in serious roles, as I recall it, like real roles, I should say. That's actually one of the things that I'm a little turned off about with the new Blade film, because Mahershala Ali is like a good actor.
Yes.
And it just feels to me, this is the kind of dinosaur I am. I still think of these kinds of films as for actors like Schwarzenegger or even Charlton Heston from a bygone era, because he really wasn't a good actor. Or Wesley, who was uneven. Wesley's great in Blade. If you watch Jungle Fever, it's like Wesley's giving two performances. When he's the trifling brother who's cheating on his wife, he's great. But when he's in the office and has to be professional, he's horrible.
Well, that's
Planet of the best Charlton Heston performance ever was the not the original Planet
Damn
of the
You
Apes,
All to Hell,
but the 2001 Planet of the Apes, where he plays the role he was born to play as a dying ape who worships a gun.
Yeah.
So,
And I forget, was he an orangutan? That's my recollection.
that sounds right.
I thought Wesley was good in Mo Better Blues. Jake Cornthos says that.
I can see that.
I agree.
Purple Rain Goes Jazz. I understand.
That's a good call. Oh man. We should make Ben watch a bunch of Spike Lee movies.
I have seen a couple, but yeah.
But as big a fan as I am of Wesley Snipes, I don't think of him as an actor with a ton of range. He does some things very well. Mahershala Ali is a really good actor. So my dinosaur dispositions lend me to be a bit disappointed. I'm happy for him as a payday, right? That's great. But for him, I was like, aren't you better than this? I think you are.
They're slowly trying to bring in the darker side of the Marvel universe, which is the horror comics with Doctor Strange, and there is a chance that it could actually be pretty true to the source material.
Did you watch the new Doctor Strange?
I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I did too. I mean, it did feel much more horror-y than the original one. I mean, like you can kind of tell it's a Sam Raimi thing.
So if a Raimi's involved, that might be, even if a Guillermo del Toro is involved.
Yeah, like The Strain. Yeah, how much you like The Strain?
Which one is The Strain?
It's an FX vampire series. I think it was 4 seasons.
Yeah, the way I said horror did sound a little bit like horror, but that is not where I was going with that.
Well, you know,
yeah, it just seemed very. No, that actually sounds like something that should be said in Jason's dad voice. It seemed very whorish.
Glory. Well, and on the dinosaur front, I mean, I assume that we've all seen Black Panther. I was very impressed with all of the acting performances, all the green screen acting that everyone did in the film except Angela Bassett and what's his face, Forrest Whitaker. And so those two serious actors from a different era seem to have the kind of Christopher Reeves problem with Superman, because Christopher Reeves was a good actor, not in those Superman films, but outside of Superman films, he was a very solid actor. And I just assume for actors of a certain age, before you were dying to get a franchise, which would include Forrest Whitaker and Angela Bassett, both I think are classically trained actors. I know Bassett is. That for those actors from a previous generation, it's kind of hard to act to a green screen because this wasn't really in step with your training. You're working with an actor. You're not imagining some shit that's going to be added post-production, right?
And also Forrest Whitaker was in a different Star Wars film. He was in a Star Wars film where they actually wanted sets and practical effects in Rogue One. Those are legacy checks these people are cashing.
I'm not sweating them, right? Because they got bills to pay and retirement and all that stuff. But I'm just making the point that it does seem with actors of a certain age, with a Harrison Ford exception, because he was exceptionally good in all of the ridiculous stuff that he did, like Blade Runner, which I liked, and Star Wars, which I like, of course, but ridiculous insofar as it's fantasy.
But sets and practical effects, right? These are sets that are built out. It's not a lot of green screen. I'm actually rewatching the original Blade Runner cut right now because I was gonna write.
Sure, it's the original because there's like 7 cuts.
It's the theatrical release.
Okay.
The original theatrical release in America.
Yeah, because again, in Mexico, the only things I get in Mexico are things that you guys don't even care to watch anymore.
All right.
So I can get like that. It's like 7 releases. You're right, and there's like the original theatrical. This is the director's cut. This is the other producer's cut. Yeah. Harrison Ford's opinion cut.
I think it is 7. It's like half a dozen or more.
It's fun watching these older science fiction movies where they actually had to build out sets. Even watching some of the Corman films that he was doing with the ripoffs of other movies where they actually still had to build sets.
Alien. He did like 3 Alien ripoffs.
Even before he was doing Alien ripoffs, because dude, was it not Ridley Scott? Who's the guy?
James Cameron.
James Cameron worked for Corman.
Piranha 2 Flying Death or something.
he did a few of the Star Wars ripoffs for Corman.
He did Battle Beyond the Stars.
Yeah, I believe so. Mm-hmm. So when you look at the sets in some of those movies and some of the shots, they're really, really good. Yeah, don't ask me why I've been falling down the rabbit holes of really shitty movies.
I'm a practical effects guy, so I know what you're talking about.
And I've been watching ninja movies.
I do, I love the various I don't know which 3 cuts of Blade Runner I watched, but I have I have seen a couple of them. I always love that movie. I know this is a hot take that like a lot of people don't like this, but I actually thought Blade Runner 2049 kind of sucked. Like it was pretty to look at, right? Mm-hmm. It was great visually, and there were some cool world building details, but like as a story, like it didn't, you couldn't think about it very hard, and like it wasn't really that compelling.
I bought it for my wife. I've never watched it. I bought it for my wife.
I've never watched it.
It came out, and I think she watched it because that was the point of me buying it for her, right? But I can't bring myself to watch it.
Okay, yeah,
doesn't seem interesting
because of that.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, it wasn't really that interesting. Yeah. I mean, they just had it's like, oh, we're going to do a Blade Runner sequel, and let's put a lot of energy into thinking about what it looks like and what all the cool little details are about how the world works and stuff, and the actual like story and characters and symbolism, all that. It just, I don't know, it felt kind of thrown together, to be honestly. But Blade did not, and I think we have like 3 sentences left of the plot of Blade, so let's do that. Even though now that the Deacon's the blood god, cutting him in half doesn't do anything. For some reason, the serum, like Blade serum, does. I don't know if that was explained in some way that I missed, but
she had done something to the serum to make it stronger. Yeah.
Okay.
And she made it a bioweapon.
Gotcha.
For vampires, anyway.
She did all this in like the 15 minutes that she got to do work.
Because she was following Blade around all day.
Yeah.
But even if she had a full 48 hours, right? Didn't sleep for 2 days, got left alone in the lab. Just do your thing. You do you. I'm going to do me. I'm going to kill some vampires. You do some blood work. That's the division of labor. 48 hours? For real?
I mean, and she's in the way. They're making weapons here, and she's over here mixing ingredients. What was Whistler saying when all this is going on?
But I mean, they set her up to be Whistler's replacement. at the end, right?
Right.
Where was she?
Yeah,
That's what
well,
I
they
want to
did,
know.
right? So Blade
She went into
kills
sequels.
the Deacon Blood God with the serum, and then they're leaving the Temple of Eternal Night, and Karen's like, well, I don't, they like, look, I only made like 2 bioweapons and 3 vaccines in the last 2 days, so I haven't quite got one that works for you yet, but I could probably come up with one if you want me to. I can fit that in by Tuesday, right? Like making the Blade vaccine. And he's like, no, I've got a job to do. There's still a war going on. Just get me a better serum. And it's just taken as for granted that, of course, she can do that, right? That's nothing. That'll be like, she'll do that, like, when she gets
2
home,
weeks tops. Tops.
Exactly. So this whole issue about his immunity to serum is no longer an issue. And then we do this little code into the movie at the end where is in Russia and it's really snowy, and he kills a vampire in Russia. And even though it's 1998, for some reason he refers to him as comrade. I guess Blade's in his 30s, so he still thinks of it as the Soviet Union.
Gotta love Cold War propaganda. You forgot about the skating uphill.
Oh yeah, okay, that's true.
Always
that's true.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Apparently,
That's some great lines.
As I was reading, Wesley Snipes in describing the character of Deacon Frost, because he was a producer on this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what kind of guy is he? He's like, man, he's one of these guys that's always ice skating uphill. And the writers and the directors like, we got to Wesley. That's another one.
Motherfuckers
Did
always
you get a writing credit for that too?
Wesley, God, we love you. You're never gonna fade as a star in Hollywood.
Well, all I got to say is I like Blade a lot more than I like Shaquille O'Neal's Steel.
Oh God, Shaquille O'Neal.
I didn't watch that. No.
Oh.
And then when you do Shazam, not Shazam.
Yeah.
Something like that, right?
Yeah.
So when a genie, he was a white boy's genie.
Shaquille, here's the thing.
Ben's dad again.
You're a big star, Shaquille. You're dunking the basketball. Have you thought about your future in show business? I see you as a genie. Because these little white kids, they're going to rub the lamp. You're going to come out. You're going to grant some wishes. It'll be fabulous.
Just think Richard Pryor's The Toy.
Look what that did to his career.
No damage, no racial embarrassment, nothing.
I mean, is that why he lit himself on fire? I don't think so. Shaquille, you're going to be the 7-foot Richard Pryor.
And Big Daddy Kane.
Can you act like you can't read when you do blue chips for Shaquille?
Indeed.
Have you ever, none of us here are famous enough to been in pitch meetings for ourselves, but I've been kind of around some of them. There's a lot of truth to that fucking joke that they're just blowing an amazing amount of smoke in your behind, telling you you're going to do things that you have no business doing.
Like rapping or playing giant genies.
Oh my God. When your living is off of this person's whims, like if you were like, let's say you're like Touré, let's just say in an alternate universe, left podcasting pays real money and we have to have agents because there's so many different, like Towards Freedom is New York Times bestseller. Logic, Give Him an Argument is like this huge, all Ben does is he's like the Danielle Steele of fucking philosophy books. I can't talk. There's a dude in your ear that's like, Ben, your books, they're flying off the shelves. What we need from you is more merchandise with you with no shirt. Numbers say here. All your stupid friends that have an idea of what you should do, right? Because again, none of us are rich enough where someone says what you should do. Because they're like, fuck what we do. So someone gets Touré, what you should do. You should write a science fiction script.
And that sounds like Chris Rock's bit from way back in the day, from I think mid-90s, where you get caught cheating on a woman, and she keeps telling you it'll be all right if you just say you did it. It'll be all right if you just say you did it. And he said, you hear that shit 900 times. You start to lose your mind. You think, well, I guess it'll be all right if I just say I did it. So that apparently is what happened to Shaq. If it wasn't about infidelity and fessing up, but it was, well, I guess it'd be all right if I just play a genie.
I mean, I like movies. I should be in one. Is that what you want?
I got this Superman tattoo on my shoulder.
Right here. Superman, but black, kind of an android. It will not be canon.
I remember him doing the promos for Steel, and it was awkward.
Dude.
I did appreciate that rap he did about Kobe, though. That was funny.
You know what we should do? We should go, Ben. We should go hang out in LA where those people actually are and just sit in the table next to them and just laugh our ass off when we hear these conversations. We should just like go to like Rodeo Drive and just get water at some really expensive restaurant. We hear these pitch meetings.
Definitely.
Like Brad Pitt. Brad, we got a movie for you. You're a 65-year-old man. But this movie calls for you to have your shirt off a lot. We got your steroid guy on speed dial. Don't worry, Brad.
Hey, I hear you can get ripped eating pizza. And salad is for suckers.
Shit.
You seen that ad, right? That
guy. Tell me how my ass tastes.
That was the rap. I wasn't going to say it. I have a job. But that was the rap. To a live audience. And if I recall correctly, he tried to get a call and answer out of it. That shit was hysterical.
Someone says, I would love to be at the pitch meeting for Tropic Thunder. I would love to have been at the pitch meeting for Tropic Thunder.
That's awkward. Now, was Robert Downey Jr. coming off a low point in his career at that moment? Right?
Yes.
He hadn't had his resurgence.
He hadn't had Iron Man yet. Nope.
Right. Definitely not that.
You know, a true story. When Boots Riley was talking about Sorry to Bother You, I was like, this sounds odd. It's going to be about a telemarketer. A whole movie?
Yeah, well, it's going to be about unionizing telemarketers with a science fiction horror twist.
So is it good though? Because like I bought it when it first was available. Yeah, but I haven't had the heart to watch it.
Sorry to Bother You is great. Yeah, I love it.
It's a little long, but yeah.
Is it? It's long.
Yeah.
I thought it was really good.
Okay.
Really, really, really funny. Really smart. Boots is a huge film guy. Like, but again, running into him, I was like, oh, telemarketing. That's interesting.
Just think girl 6, but good. Less sexy and good.
Like the amount of people that he got to sign off on that movie right away. Like, again, the pitch on that was insane. And then at the end, he's going to, I don't want to spoil it for you, but insane pitch meetings. I'll never understand how certain movies get made. Yeah. It's not like people know Boots' dad, right?
Like the shit, what is it? The Key and Peele sketch for the Gremlins 2.
I didn't see that one. What season was that?
I'm trying to remember. See if maybe the internet will know.
Speaking of Peele, I was watching an interview he did with Bobby Lee, the comedian Bobby Lee, and they were talking about when he was working out the idea of Get Out.
Well,
like, with comedians.
I will, you know,
Interesting.
I'm not going to, you know, the sketch isn't even that long. We're going to get busted by the copyright cops if I did it now. But after we, you know, after we stop recording, I can just show you. But in any case, very similar along these lines. Okay, so speaking of stopping recording, we should wrap this up. So final thoughts about Blade, Jason.
One of my favorite vampire movies. Loved the sequel. Didn't mind the third one, but it wasn't that great. Wesley Snipes forever cements himself as that character, regardless of if the sequel or the new remake is going to be good or bad. Wesley Snipes will forever be the most badass vampire hunter in the history of vampire hunters.
Co-sign
Give
all
it
that.
2 thumbs up.
Touré.
Great film. Certainly my favorite superhero film. Not saying much, but this is actually objectively good in my view. And as I said from the start, Wesley Snipes, I'm a big fan of his as an action hero, and he brought some joy to my life at a point where I was feeling down, because I like to watch him beat up on motherfuckers.
Can't improve on that.
There. And convincingly too.
Mm-hmm.
In keeping with Jason's point about him being the badass superhero.
Yeah, which was actually one of the best lines that I did not remember for the many times I'd seen it before. The thing where Quinn is making his excuses for not killing Blade, and Deacon's like, yeah, I know, and he does the swords under you, and the, you know, like.
There was something really satisfying, though, watching him take out Deacon Frost for all those reasons we've discussed. The club kid from the 90s.
Oh yeah, and plus dude was just messing with his girl, talking shit about his
And
mom.
his mama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, your mom's kind of hot, Blade.
And I would take the kind of out personally.
Blade, don't get mad. I'm kind of into, Jungle Fever.
It does seem like the kind of dude who would have said that.
He would have totally said that.
In 1998.
Right.
You shot the fever. And I don't mean for the flavor of the Pringles.
I totally got the fever on your mom, bro. Sorry I made you, but I mean, look at this. She's a smoke show, dude.
He ain't lying, though. But anyway.
Fair enough. So, John, next month?
Uh-oh. You froze, Ben?
Did I cut out?
Yeah. What'd you say?
You're back.
Oh, never mind. So yeah, so Dawn of the Dead next month.
Oh yeah, the Dawn of the Dead remake, right?
Yeah. Yep.
With
2004
Richard
Dawn of the
Cheese
Dead.
in the Lounge Against the Machine.
I kind of want to watch both.
Mm.
Just to get ready.
Let's not and say we didn't.
The other black guy is in the other one. What's it, Ken Foree?
Ving Rhames. Oh, the
first one, yeah.
Yeah, he's great. He's great.
Yeah.
And I like what they're going for in the original. I haven't watched it in a long time. I just find it unwatchable.
Oh, interesting.
The cinematography and the blood. I don't know.
Gotcha.
So I'm a much bigger fan of the sequel, partly because of the remake. Partly because of the aesthetic qualities of it. I mean, it's very nicely done. It's got a nice rhythm to it. Blade had a great rhythm, actually, but I think Dawn of the Dead 2004 had a really good pacing, and it's punctuated by moments of horror and then these moments of humanity and kindness from time to time too.
And I think we need to I showed Ben someone that made a commentary about zombie movies, and especially that one. And I had never seen the 2004 remake. I've only seen the original. And Ben went off on like a 10-20 minute text rampage with me about what this
think they
dude.
got a lot of things wrong in the.
So this one for me, I'm very excited to sit back and watch Ben give his take on this.
You know, someone in the chat said this was Snyder's only good movie, and didn't he do the 2011 prequel kind of remake of The Thing? As my recollection.
Oh, did he? Is that Snyder?
He did it, as I recall it. Maybe I'm wrong. And one of the things that made that such a disappointment, it wasn't good. I was looking forward to it. Not really normally into prequels, but I love The Thing, obviously. But one of the things that made it such a disappointment would have been beyond Snyder's or whoever did the film, whoever directed it, beyond his control, because originally he did it with practical effects largely. Yeah. And for whatever reason, they decided very late in the game when they were doing the finishing touches on the practical effects, and they had to blend some CGI in, of course, to make the practical effects work in transition, that kind of thing. They decided to shift gears and eliminate nearly all of the practical effects and replace them with CGI. And it just kind of ruined, that alone ruined the film. The absence of sexism in 1981 with a bunch of scientists was a problem for me too. Just like that issue I have with Stranger Things. Sure. Nobody's going to be nice to this woman like that. And as a graduate student anyway, even if she were a white dude, all those fancy PhDs would have still been kind of assholes. They would have been super assholes to her in 1981, right, as a woman.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the original Thing, which obviously, you know, we talked about a long time ago. I mean, I think that's
John Carpenter's The Thing.
Yeah, the John Carpenter's, like, that's I mean, whatever. I'm a huge Carpenter fan. I think that's an amazing movie. You know, the 2011 one, I mean, I saw it in the theater, and like my reaction even at the time was like, yeah, that's like an okay episode, X-Files episode.
Mm-hmm. Ooh. I love The Thing. I'm glad we redid it.
The Carpenter Thing.
The Carpenter Thing.
Yeah, not the 2011 one.
Yeah.
We should try to find John Carpenter, Ben, when you come down here.
Yeah. Okay. I'm down. Let's do it.
Why not? Crazier shit's happened.
Fair enough.
Hey, he seems like a cool dude.
Yeah, he does his own soundtracks for most of his movies. And
they don't sound alike at all.
They're iconic as hell.
Some of them are very good.
I mean, Halloween 3.
Did you see John Carpenter's Vampires? Because
I did, yes.
Isn't the soundtrack kind of like They Live There?
I don't remember the soundtrack that well. Vampires. I mean, I think it was like
same idea.
It was fun. I mean, it was probably the least interesting John Carpenter movie I can, like, you know, I don't know. I wasn't that into it as a movie, but yeah, I mean, it was fun to watch.
I'm a big Ghost of Mars fan.
Ghost of Mars is what I'm thinking of. Well, Anthrax did the score.
That's one of my favorite aspects of it. I also like the way that the aliens talk. It works for me. And they're all metal, right? Piercings for days and leather. It's crazy.
Like, Carpenter seems cool. I even like some of the shorts he's done. The stuff he did for Masters of Horror.
Mm-hmm.
Cigarette Burns was good.
My band after that Fan Absolute Demo. So
that's only SD too, though. Masters of Horror.
I watched a bunch of those. I remember because I was watching the Masters of Horror back when it was getting the individual DVDs from Netflix, you know, so that took some commitment.
Oh, Masters of Horror is on Amazon.
Yeah, but it's SD, right? I'm pretty sure I bought it a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it's not. No.
And yes, David Russell, I need period pieces to be appropriately racist.
It's true. And David Russell, I have seen Riccio.
I mean, it is like there can be something really jarring about that. I mean, not that this is supposed to be a realistic movie, but and I'm embarrassed in advance that I'm even referencing it as a example. But Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
Yes. Infuriating.
It's like, wait a second, this is a version of 1861 where you can have like a black White House intern or something. Like,
I mean, I'm going to tell you. So that movie came out around the sesquicentennial of secession, right? So in all these southern states, many of the secessionist states anyway, people were throwing Confederate balls, right? Denying the central role of slavery. It was disgusting. And this film comes out around that same time. And initially I was like, oh, it's kind of messed up. But then I was like, no, you know what? Contrasted with this bullshit that's going on in South Carolina, I like the idea of portraying, slaveholders as spawns of Satan. It sounds pretty good to me. And I saw it and I was, one, stunned by how boring it was. But, just for what it was. But two, while I could totally accept the idea that slaveholders are vampires, that worked for me on some visceral level.
Sure.
The idea that Abraham Lincoln's best friend from like adolescence to childhood was black, that was a bridge too far. That's just wrong. That's unacceptable.
I mean, that was like, yeah, it's really hard not to choke on that.
It's horrible. And Lincoln's anti-slavery, like the way that people talk about Lincoln from both sides is just too stark. He's complicated. The Jude was, in fact, anti-slavery. The Republican Party was anti-slavery. That was like their central issue. You could be anti-slavery and not pro-black rights all at the same time. And
clearly,
for too long in Lincoln's political career, he managed to sort of juggle the two. But to his defense, he moves on a lot of issues on the lead up to the Civil War, with and certainly during the Civil War with regard to black rights. So he's complicated. We don't talk about him, culturally as a complicated figure, but in keeping with him being complicated, as much as he didn't like slavery, and even though he moved on the issue of black rights during the war, his best friend as a child was not a black man. That was not an option for a young Abraham Lincoln. Damn it. So that's just wrong. But worse than that, Ben, do you see that Overlord movie? J.J. Abrams? It has a couple of great tastes rolled up in one for me. I mean, so it's in theory like a Reese's peanut butter cup, though I hate chocolate and peanut butter together. But anyway, it's set in World War II just before Operation Overload. Overlord, sorry. And so the Normandy invasion. And what it is, it's a Nazi super soldier zombie movie. So all that works for me. But the one thing that is the kiss of death is that the commando unit, the U.S. paratrooper unit that goes in to blow up this Nazi, whatever the hell it is, they don't know that there's zombie super soldiers, is integrated. Bokeem Woodbine is the squad sergeant. And then one of the key privates, actually the protagonist, is also black, right? And there's that's not an option in World War II. The military was segregated. And two, one of the reasons it's not an option is those white boys wouldn't have given Bokeem Woodbine the respect that a sergeant would have merited in that context, nor would they have been as cool with their black co-private as they were as well. Whoa, that's an interesting reflection on Abraham Lincoln's black friend.
He wrestled with the young day.
I'm amused.
Fair enough.
But they obliterate the racial politics. It's all wrong. It's all wrong.
Yeah.
Well, there's
Yeah, I mean, actually, the Steven Spielberg Lincoln was okay on that. Like they definitely they were definitely smoothing it over a little bit, right? Even there, but like but they did at least like gesture at some of the complexity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'd have to.
Yeah.
Well, we've been talking for 2.5 hours. I think we.
I
think we gotta cut it off there. So be back with these gentlemen next month. Talk about the 2004 Dawn of the Dead. We will. I'll be back tomorrow night talking to William Paris from What's Left of Philosophy about utopianism. If you like what we do here and you want to keep it going, go to the Patreon link and get exclusive post games every Monday night, and our eternal love and gratitude for keeping this thing alive. And I think we'll stop it for tonight. Left is best.